It is the voice of the wisdom of the ages. It is the most complex structure ever developed or devised. It is a dynamic creation that constantly shapes and reshapes itself. Much is known about it, yet it contains secrets as deep and remote as the farthest galaxy. It is a miracle, a marvel, a masterpiece that holds the wonders of the ages. It is the universe within. It is the human brain.
This is your brain. A 3-pound jello-like universe with 100 billion neurons, each plugged into 50,000 other neurons. It contains everything you know, and it controls everything you do. But more important, it's not just one of your organs. Your kidney is an organ. If we gave your kidney to your brother Jack, he'd still be Jack with one of your kidneys. But if we could transplant your brain into your brother Jack, he'd no longer be Jack, he'd be you. Because all of a sudden he'd prefer blondes. He'd enjoy Mozart. He'd no longer get seasick or whatever. In other words, your brain is you. Now, working in addictions for almost 40 years, here is how I have seen alcohol and other drugs impair this brain. From the first drink, snort, shot, all the way through drunkenness and death by an overdose. Let's say I'm a computer engineer. I arrive at your house for a party. I'm tired from a day's work. So I'll have me a drink to relax. Oh my God, there is my ex-wife with her new boyfriend. So quickly, give me a double to control my resentment. You know, within minutes, I feel better. Why? I have altered reality. She and the boyfriend are still there, but I feel like they're gone. Why? Because even at low doses like 0.02 BAC, the front lobe alcohol effects are taking place. Right here, the seat of my judgment, my values, my ethics. Here is where I feel empathy and jealousy. Here is where I feel delight and despair and anger and remorse and all the things that make me human. I change in front of your very eyes from stiff and anxious to comfortable, expansive, boisterous. I start telling dirty jokes. And some of the ladies are wondering. Yeah, a little more, 0.05, and I start telling my deepest secrets to the bartender or to the guy sitting next to me. Why? Because I have done a prefrontal lobotomy. I have done a Saturday night lobotomy on myself. Reminds me of the guy who drank too much and said, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a prefrontal lobotomy. Also, I notice some of the people in your party are beginning to avoid me. But others are gathering closer to me. Why? Because they're also getting drunk. Birds of a feather drink together. Or snort together, or whatever. At about 0.10, these cells are affected, cells that control fine motor movements. Now I start dropping things. I knock drinks over. I stumble. These cells control motor movements and the fine neurotransmitters and fibers that go throughout the brain. But my behavior also changes. Because you see, at 0.05, I only had sexy thoughts. Now, I make sexual propositions to women I don't even know. Worse yet, to my boss's wife. Also, over here, I only had angry thoughts. Now, I challenge a total big stranger. Yeah, who do you think you're looking at? Boom! Punch him in the nose. and he wipes the deck with me. It's Woody Allen taking on John Wayne, and I expect to win. Well, if at this point I've had it, I storm out of your party in anger, I'll probably get in trouble because of my motor impairment, my lack of coordination, but mostly because of my poor judgment. I'll probably become one of the 60% hit-and-run victims who was walking recklessly and too drunk to jump out of the way in time. I may have unsafe sex with strangers. Tomorrow morning, I may get sued for sexual harassment or molestation, and I can't even remember who was involved because memory patterns in the hippocampus are not laid down. If I'm a woman, I may become pregnant, and I can't remember by whom because of the memory. In such blackouts now, I lose things. Can't remember where I left my car. I also find or pick up things. For example, gonorrhea. Or AIDS, and I'm a doctor. I may also get arrested. Drunk driving after a bar mitzvah. Or I shoot my brother-in-law at a St. Patty's brawl. Or I get arrested for botching a simple robbery when I'm really a very clever thief when I'm sober. The next morning, oh, I got a swollen brain. The agony is longer than the ecstasy. I hope I had a good time last night. It sure cost me plenty. My wallet is empty. Some of you are nodding. My wallet is empty. My credit cards are gone. Oh, and then, my God, I noticed my daughter has a black eye. Fortunately, my wife comes right to the rescue and says, oh, honey, you didn't mean to hit her. It was an accident. I think that's why Mark Twain said, man is the only animal that blushes and needs to. Fortunately, I didn't leave your party. I'm still there. I'm just having another double because I'm a heavy social drinker. What's a heavy social drinker? Why, it means every time somebody says, I think I'll have a drink, I say, so shall I. Boom, get me another double. Or I'll tell the bartender, pour me about 2 fingers. That's funny. And I get smashed, and when I start to fade, I do a little cocaine. It's good stuff. I can feel the pulses pounding into my head, unaware that my liver is meanwhile changing the alcohol and the cocaine into cocaethylene, which is a bad compound that causes coronaries in some people, causes paranoia. I may also smoke a joint. For those of you who are maybe my age, here is how you smoke a joint. Don't talk to me now, just not. This also impairs my driving ability and just ruins my judgment. I may also hit some more doubles. Now, at about 0.20, this part of the brain is involved, where the vision is processed. Light from the eye goes through the brain, and it becomes a visual picture here. Now I have double vision, trouble with color vision, with depth perception. But the real problem here is not that this part is at 0.20. The real problem is that the whole brain is at 0.20, which means that my judgment, which was bad at 0.02, is now shot, which is why I do things I'd never do sober. For example, 70% of drowning victims were drunk or loaded. Sober people who can't swim don't go in deep water. Company picnic. A 50-year-old, 5'5", 200-pound bookkeeper, drunk, slides home and breaks his leg. Expert skiers on cocaine get hurt on the beginner slope. Hunters dressed in multicolored safety clothing so they won't mistake each other, shoot each other by mistake because their gun isn't the only thing that was loaded. At 0.25, the cerebellum gets hit. This is the part that coordinates muscle movement and balance. So now I walk like this, But even though I have trouble walking, I get in my car and I start driving with windows open and the rain pouring in, or windshield wipers flapping, and the sun is shining. How come? Because when I drove up to the saloon, I was so eager to get my first drink, I just turned the ignition off, ran inside and started drinking. 2 hours later, I come back out, drunk of course, and I get in my car, just barely able to concentrate enough to crank her up and start driving real straight like, with the windows open and the rain coming in. Meanwhile, it started raining. Or windshield wipers going, and it's a sunny day. Or I'm driving, by now it's evening, I haven't got the lights on. Can't think that much. Or I'm driving real extra careful, straight down that one-way street the wrong way. Oh, some of you identify. Well, the cops pull me over, they make me recite the alphabet, they make me do the finger-to-nose test, they make me do the heel-to-toe walk, they make me stand on one foot. Why? They want to find out my BAC. By making me do these things, they can tell, based on my judgment, on my motor movements, on my coordination, and on my balance, how drunk I am. With my finger up my ear, they arrest me. For the next 12 hours, I'll be testing positive for alcohol. 72 hours for other drugs. 6 weeks for marijuana, because it's stored in the fat cells. Incidentally, you know what part of the body is very high in fat cells? The brain, which makes me a fat head and a pot head all in one, I guess. The marijuana also lowers my testosterone level, which shrinks my testicles. And like heroin, it makes my breasts grow, even though I'm a male. Incidentally, when you drink, same thing happens. Your brain shrinks and your testicles get to about this size. For those of you who want to be macho, this is not the way to go. Nevertheless, after posting bail, I'm out of jail, I'm back in your party, and now I'm having more doubles, and now your friends have to take care of me. And they do. They coach me something like, Joe, say goodnight to the boss. And I look up and say, oh yeah, let me tell that son of a girl, he can stick his company. And he's embarrassed and he looks the other way. Well, since he's leaving, I decided to have me another double because, see, I always drink doubles. I've learned that the liver can process 1 drink per hour. So I like to have 1 for the liver and 1 for the brain. And that way I can keep on going. At 0.30, we're getting into major league now, 0.30, I'm lying in the next room, I'm passed out with erratic heartbeat, with sluggish pupils, with impending coma, stuporous. With my gag reflex gone, I'm lying there and all of a sudden, up comes the burrito pretzel cheese dip. And it gets to about here and I inhale it and die of asphyxiation. My last snort. Here's a real case. I'm a college freshman. I just downed a pint of scotch in 20 minutes for my initiation into the fraternity. Now, usually when the BAC goes up that fast, it triggers a vomiting reflex. Well, this time, sometimes that vomiting reflex fails. So they put me in the next room. I'm laid out. I'm passed out. Fortunately, my BAC is only 0.30. However, in about 15 minutes, it's 0.35. 0.38. How can it be going up? It's going up because I'm still absorbing the alcohol that's in my stomach. And as I slip into 0.40 and coma, now my vital centers are hit, right down here. My respirations stop. And with no oxygen in my blood, the brain dies in about 5 minutes. And then my heart quits. And then rigor mortis sets in. And in the morning, instead of getting into the fraternity, I'm being delivered into the morgue. The same thing happens to me when I'm a patient in the operating room, except the anesthesiologist takes me from 0 to coma in about 1 minute. He keeps me here just this side of death. My heart is still beating, and I'm still breathing, but I'm practically dead. As I'm coming out of here, at about here, I make a pass at the ICU nurse. And my wife looks just like you. My wife looks the other way, and the nurse says, "Oh, they all do that." And my wife says, "Oh, that's what the barmaid says on Saturday night when he pinches it in the bowling alley." Sedative hypnotics, pain pills, tranquilizers, sleeping pills, they work exactly like alcohol, except you smell better. Uppers, psychedelics, they give you energy. They bring out the animal. Colors, lights, sexual urges. You should see the guys going in this audience. Sexual urges, paranoia. I don't like the way you're looking at this guy. Violence, convulsions, death. Pot mellows the brain. It also mellows short-term memory, and it dissolves long-term ambition. Opiates like heroin, Vicodin, Darwan, they mess up your endorphins, and you quite often die of pulmonary edema or heart problems, cardiac arrest. Mixing alcohol and other drugs is dangerous because of something we call synergism. It means that I could maybe take this whole bag of pills or drink a whole quart of vodka, and I won't die. But if I take just a smaller bunch of pills and wash them down with a pint of vodka, I probably will die. It's like instead of 2 + 2 = 4, you get 2 + 2 = 6, like in deep sex. Adolescents stay sicker longer because drugs impair learning. They don't grow up. That's why a 50-year-old alcoholic airline pilot will come out of rehab a month later as a sober pilot. A 15-year-old alcoholic student may become a dropout for life. Pretty soon he is 25, going on 16, and he's too scared to catch up with life. Women get sicker quicker, are more likely to get brain damage and liver damage. And we have ideas, but we don't really know why too clearly. Older people are more vulnerable because they have less brains. Unfortunately, with every decade after 50, we lose about 2 to 3% of brain weight. Much of that comes from losing about half the cells in the motor and sensory area and the visual area. Have you noticed your grandpa doesn't want to drive at night anymore? Fortunately, as we age, thinking, cognition, and reasoning stays, and we don't end up really being Alzheimer's or Anheuser's or anything else. Now, but if you're a chronic heavy drinker, though, you do have memory impairment and fuzzy thinking. Also, we know from CAT scans, from MRIs, X-rays, from autopsies, we know that the brain shrinks. Talk about head shrinking. Well, the good news is that after 3 years of abstinence, even in chronic alcoholics, much of the thinking comes back, much of the defects. But here is another side to this story. You see, alcohol and drug use affect not only the drinker or the user, they also affect the people around him. Remember at your party how people smiled but avoided me? The look of horror on your wife's face when I swung for the piñata and smashed the lamp. My angry boss looking the other way. My wife explaining my daughter's black eye. The bartender scared he'll get sued if I crash on the way home. My wife boss, the nurse, all of them, in this thing, covering up for love or money, and sometimes they don't even know which it is that they're doing themselves. I call this